Okay, I want to show you one more way to insert some data. A lot of times we want to have a table, we want to create a table and populate it with data that might exist somewhere else. More typically we would do this with a view. We haven't got the views yet. We're going to do it with the table though. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. So here's my create table statement. Okay. So I have a create table statement that creates a table called employee sales, which is in the DBO schema. So we really could just not put anything there and that would work just fine. So it's going to be up here in the DBO schema where other example tables are getting created. It's going to have some columns, 4 columns. I have a column called data source, which is going to hold 20 characters. It's going to hold a business entity ID, which is 11 characters, last name, and sales dollars. So basically we're creating a table to keep track of which employees by name had and the amount of sales that they made. Okay, so we know to get that information out, because we've done this in the past, there's a more complex query that we have to do to join a few tables together, get all of this data at once. So let's run this and create the table. Okay, so now I have this DBO employee sales. There it is. And it has the columns we specified. Okay, we can select from it. And it has no data in it. All right. So we want to populate this with some data. We're going to write another query, and I am not going to force you to watch me type this. I'm going to copy and paste it. Let's write a query that gets the information we would like to put in that table. Okay. So here's the information I want to put in this table. I'm just going to execute it so we can see it. All right, so we're putting this thing called select as the data source. Where is this data coming from? It's from a select statement, right? And you'll see why we want to keep track of that in our table in a little bit. So we're going to get the business entity ID, SP, comes from the salesperson table. Okay. We're going to get the last name from the person.person table. We used a C for that. Okay. And we're going to get the sales year to date also from the salesperson table. Okay. So we're joining those two tables on matching business entity ID. Only for those business entity IDs that start with a 2 apparently. Okay. And we're going to order it by their business entity ID and then their last name. So let's run this. I already ran the statement. That's the data. This is the data that we want to stick in to the table that we made up here. How do we do it? Okay. Well, first of all, we have to make sure our select statement has matching columns, right? This first one, varchar 20. That should work just fine. The second one, varchar 11 for this column. That should be just fine. Last name, varchar 40. Yes. Sales dollars is money. And these are all money down here. So the columns do match up. So all we need to do is at the top is add insert into the table we want to insert this data into. So it's dbo.employee sales. Okay. That's it. We're taking the results of this query and we're inserting it into this table. Okay. So you build this query, you build this by just running the query until you get the data formatted how you want. And then just add the insert into and the table name. And when I run the whole thing, it executes. All 17 of those rows in that query were added to this table now. So if I come back here and select from it, you can see and it tells us where we got the data. It came from a select statement. So that's insert into using the results from one query to populate a table.